Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look into Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I am your host, and we're pleased to be joined by the Gladwin head football coach, as we always do. It's Mark Jarsfer. How are you?
Doing good. How are you, Casey?
Doing good. I can tell by the shirt that you're wearing, as Gladwin, of course, is coming off another win against Beaverton. So that means Butch will be back in the possession of Gladwin. Well, first off, you got to go get him. We'll talk about that as later on in the show, how you guys are going to do that. But let's go through all the highlights. Of course, starting off in the first quarter, Preston Willard, a 1 yard run in for a touchdown. Actually was a 2 point and also a 2 point conversion, which made it 8-0. Then a 5 yard run by your quarterback, Colton Finnegar, made it 15-0. And then Isaac Wheeler, a 20-yard pass to make it 22-0 in the end of the first quarter. And then the second, Christian Bortz with a 2 yard run to make it 29-0. And then an 82-yard run by Trace Corlew to make it 36-0. And then Preston Willett with a 16-yard run to make it 42-0 at the end of the first half.
Yeah, that was about as good of a start as we could have got off to. We really talked all week about being physical and playing our style of football. Knowing that we're going to need that once we get into conference play with some of these big physical teams that are coming up next. And obviously we felt that would be a winning recipe for this week with Beaverton as well. And so really offensively, defensively, and special teams had a complete first half, and not a lot that I could have asked for more than what we got out of the guys.
Yeah. Let's in the third half, Beaverton got on the board with a 3 yard run to make it 42-6, and then Preston Willard took it in with a 3 yard run to make it 49-6 in the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, Beaverton got on the board again with a 10 yard run to make it 49-14, with a 2 point conversion being successful. And then to cap it all off, and probably what a way to do it, Trace Corlew, a 76-yard kickoff return for a touchdown to make it the final score 55-14, and Gladwin going to 2-0 on the season.
Yeah, the second half was kind of unique too, in the fact that we only got to run 2 offensive plays. And then, after Beaverton had scored and methodically worked their way down in that fourth quarter, they kicked it deep to Trace, and that would have been our next shot at an offensive possession. And he had a pretty impressive run where he just refused to go down and ran that one back. And so a cool, fun way to end a great game. And again, for the second week in a row, we were able to get a lot of guys rolled through in the second half and keep working on our depth and experience and getting guys on film so that we can continue to coach them up. Knowing that that's going to be important down the stretch is having a good deep roster and having guys with game experience. And so really pleased with where we're at after 2 games. But we certainly have, a few monsters ahead of us in conference play now that we're entering that.
Okay, so before we get into the MVPs of the week, we got to talk about what you because you beat Beaverton, you get to Butch will be back in the possession of Gladwin. You have obviously currently, as of right now, at time of recording this on Sunday afternoon. He is still in Beaverton High School as we speak. But how are you guys going to get him?
Yeah, so it's one of the coolest. First of all, this is like the coolest shirt I've ever seen, right? Like it's got Butch on there with the Gladwin, kind of blanket facing out. Love to see it. But then tomorrow, on Monday during our lunchtime, right around then, the captains will make their way over, head into Beaverton schools, and then take Butch out of the trophy case, have a cool opportunity for photos and stuff like that. And then we get to bring him back into Gladwin and kind of celebrate at a few local establishments and whatnot before we return him to the school and his rightful place at home.
Yeah. So, and obviously you're going to go as well, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's always such a fun time-honored tradition. So, and now it's from one time-honored tradition to another. Now it's time for your MVPs of the week.
Yeah, I would say offensively, Preston Willard had a really impressive game and set the tone with his physical style of running. He ended up with the 3 rushing touchdowns, and I believe it was 7 carries for 96 yards as well. And so set the tone for us on the ground. Defensively, same type of tune as far as like setting the tone. I think the defensive MVP has to be Brady Dickinson. Stat sheet wasn't as crazy. I think it shows 2 tackles and an interception, but he had an early hit on a receiver that kind of was coming across the middle that was as big of a hit as I've seen. And then kind of the swagger and whatnot that he was able to show after is certainly, it was a contagious energy that our team caught. And so it was really cool to see that. And then, he does a phenomenal job at safety, just running the alley and pass defense and whatnot as well. He ended up with an interception also. And so just a great job setting the tone from him defensively. And like I said, it's not like he stuffed the stat sheet, but sometimes it's just those little things that happen throughout the game that can set the tone. Special teams this week, I would say, is Trace Corlew. I mean, obviously could have picked him as an offensive MVP as well. Offensively, he had 5, rushes for 174 yards and a touchdown. He had 1 reception for 27 yards. He had a passing touchdown for 20 yards. So he continues to just show that he can do it all. But on special teams, he had a 2-point conversion where the snap was high again this week. And so he had to handle that and navigate his way through traffic to get to the end zone. Some of the other snaps, that were decent, he was able to get on the tee and allow us to get some successful extra points through. And then, as we already alluded to earlier, he's able to cap the night off with a long kick return to end the scoring. And so I've said it a million times, but he's as impressive as a player as we've had the opportunity to coach, and we're very happy he's on our team.
Yeah. All right. Well, now it's time for the JV team update. How'd they do?
JV did really well. They went over to Beaverton and took care of business. It was a very similar margin of defeat as what the varsity was. I don't remember the exact score. I think it was like 49 to 6, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, they got a ton of experience. They played well in all 3 phases, and they were also able to rotate a lot of guys through. And so, we talk often about our JV team being a developmental piece or developmental program in our high school program. And so when you're able to get the win, that's a bonus, but also lots of guys got valuable experience, and we're hoping, in the next year or so, those guys will, because of that experience, be able to transition right into the varsity team and kind of continue on with our ways.
Yeah, for sure. Middle school football has not started yet, has it?
So they actually are. This is their game week. So first game for middle school football will be this Wednesday, doubleheader, I believe, at Saginaw White Pine, and so it'll be a cool opportunity for them to kind of kick their season off and we'll see kind of what the results bring. Again, that's another one of those developmental pieces. We're not as concerned about the wins and losses. We want to make sure that guys are getting experience, getting on the field and learning our offense and defensive systems, and continuing to develop so that they're more ready for JV. And once they get to JV, continue to develop until they ultimately get to the varsity level, and that's where we try to really put together a good team.
Absolutely. All right. Now it's time for you to talk about a staff member this week.
Yeah, I think this week would be fitting to talk about Cody Emiot. He's our defensive coordinator, and the amount of stuff that he does is just really incredible. From obviously all of our defensive calls and alignments and everything that is our defense, because he's the defensive coordinator, but the amount of time that he puts into film and scouting and tendencies and those sorts of things is really something that's special. I think if people could get an opportunity to get a glimpse into our program and see kind of his work ethic and the things that he's able to do on that end of things, they would have a whole new appreciation for that and him. And then on top of that, he's our offensive line coach. And you look at the success that we've had over the years, and even this week, being able to rush for 320 yards. It's because he's so detail oriented and expects nothing but greatness out of the people that he coaches. And I would say, he's one of the biggest pieces in our program. And so I truly believe that he's the best assistant coach in the state. And that's something that I would stand by and go to battle for against anybody.
Yeah. And of course, also, he's always this, he's the defensive coordinator, he's the offensive line coach, but, and then everyone finds out what he also does for a living because he's a teacher. But what does he teach?
He's actually my daughter's kindergarten teacher, and so it is crazy, because he's such an intense dude, and like I said, just demands greatness and expects everybody to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, which was one of the things that of course, I appreciated and was happy that we could get my daughter into that classroom because I know that it's going to be the same expectation there. But he's, I mentioned all those things that he does, but I forget probably the most important one. He is a big relationship guy as well. And so kids absolutely love him. They respect him, and they know that he's going to be there for them with whatever they need. And he's willing to answer questions at any point. He'll text with guys, check in on them. And so really the complete package.
Absolutely. All right. Well, of course, Jack Pine Conference football begins this week. Obviously, not just for you guys, but for the entire league. But I mean, just look at and of course, this is the new division of that because Division 1 and 2. So, but looking at, and of course, a very familiar opponent is on the docket this week. Of course, that is Ogemaw Heights coming in after a big win on the road against Taylor. Out in took the 3-hour trip out there and won there. But this is I know the kids are looking forward to this. But and it's going to be a good game because of course you got them the first time, they got you and knocked you out of the playoffs, and now of course they're a divisional opponent. But what's it going to be like to go up against those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about what Chad Miller, their head coach, has done with that program. You look at some of the big name teams that they've been able to knock off in the last 10, 12 games. It's as impressive as anything possibly in the state. Just this year they knocked off Ubley and ended their winning streak, which was the longest in the state at the time. And they're the defending D8 state champs from last year.
Yep.
Last year they knocked off Kingsley, who won it all in
D6.
Division 6. They knocked off Alma, who was the runner-up in Division 6.
Yep.
They knocked off Traverse City St. Francis, who was, I believe, runner-up in Division 7 last year. They knocked us off, and we were, the reigning D5 state champs at that time. And so, you're talking about 5 or 6 teams that were in the semifinals or had won a state championship, and they've knocked them all off in like their last 10 to 12 games. And so, they are as good of a program as anybody in the area or the state, even for that matter. And they just play a really tough, physical style of football. And so, with this, with them being 2-0 and us being 2-0, and them being in the league, it's as big of a matchup as you could want this early in the season, and it'll likely, go a long way into deciding, who's in the driver's seat for conference championship conversations late in the season. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be close, and I know that both teams' players understand the importance and gravity of the game, and both teams will be ready to go.
Yeah, it's and also the first road trip of the season for you guys. So that of course has its extra added benefits as well. So what's that going to be like going on the road for the first time? But and Yeah, to go all the way there and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we love playing at Brockoff Field in the comfort of our own home, and I think that going up there is going to be, it's going to add an added layer of focus for us. That's where our season ended last year, and we're very familiar with playing up there, and we've had a lot of great battles with Ogemaw over the years. Their stadium is awesome, with everybody sitting on the one side and the big concrete structure with stadium bench seating all the way across, and it's a cool place to play. So should be a great environment, and kind of a packed house for like I mentioned, one of the biggest marquee matchups in our area for this week.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a pretty massive game to kick off the Jack Pine conference play. So it's going to be a good one. And of course, both teams are 2-0, and as they always say, someone's O has got to go. So we'll see whose O does go after this week. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Flying G Huddle. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in next week where we'll recap the game against Ogemaw Heights and preview the week 4 matchup against Clare. So we'll talk to you then.